Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff, not in nature, but within yourself. Every day, you face people who expect you to be someone else, peers who push you toward the edge, waiting to see if you'll jump. The pressure to fit in, to bend, to change feels like a never-ending storm. But in that storm lies your chance to stand still and firm. Stoicism shows you how. It's not about battling others, but about facing the storm within yourself. You don't need to jump. You need to learn to control the wind inside. Only then do you reclaim your power. So start with our first lesson, which is the silence of the crowd. The noise is deafening, but it's not coming from outside. It's inside your mind. An endless loop of voices telling you what you should be doing, who you should be, and how you should act. Imagine sitting in a classroom or an office, surrounded by people nodding to ideas you don't believe in. You feel the pressure building, and with every silent moment, you drift closer to agreeing just to fit in. But what if you didn't? Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." It's not about shouting your beliefs or fighting the crowd. It's about mastering the art of silence. Not the silence of conformity, but the silence of strength. The kind where you don't give your energy to things that don't matter. In a situation where everyone expects you to nod, you can simply not. There's power in that pause, in not playing their game. When you stop trying to fill the silence with forced agreement, you realize how much control you actually have. The crowd keeps talking, but you remain anchored in your own mind, free from the need to follow. The moment you let go of the urge to respond to pressure, you take the first step toward mastering it. You're not fighting them, you're reclaiming yourself, and in the silence, you begin to hear your own voice again. Second, the hidden currency of peer pressure. Peer pressure isn't just about doing what others want. It's a subtle form of currency. Every time you conform, you're trading a piece of yourself for something else, acceptance, approval, or maybe just the relief of fitting in. But Epictetus once said, "Who then is invincible? The one who cannot be upset by anything outside of his reasoned choice." What's the real cost of this exchange? Imagine you're at a social gathering. Everyone is laughing, drinking, and playing a role. You feel the pull to join in, to take part in what seems like an easy choice. It feels simple, harmless even, until you realize that with every step closer to their expectations, you're walking further away from who you are. The exchange is invisible, but it's real. In moments like this, it's easy to overlook the cost because the reward seems immediate. But the Stoics understood that the currency of peer pressure isn't external, it's your internal integrity. Every time you pay with a piece of yourself, it's harder to buy it back. Instead of trading your authenticity for their fleeting approval, keep your currency. Keep the essence of who you are, even if it means standing on the outskirts. The world might offer you a cheaper deal, a momentary sense of belonging. But Stoicism reminds you that the most valuable thing you own is your own mind, untouched and uncompromised. And the moment you choose to stop paying with your soul, you'll find that you've gained something far more valuable than their acceptance, self-worth. Third, the invisible armor of indifference. The weight of others' expectations can feel like chains, but what if you had invisible armor? Not one that blocks physical attacks, but one that shields you from the emotional tug of peer pressure. Seneca teaches us, "He who is brave is free," but bravery isn't loud. It's the quiet armor you build by learning the art of indifference. Imagine a scenario where a group is making fun of someone for not fitting in. The pressure to join in, to laugh, to be part of the crowd is palpable. You feel the familiar itch to go along with it, even though it makes you uncomfortable. This is where most fall. The need to belong overrides what they know is right. But Stoicism gives you a different kind of power, the ability to not care. Indifference isn't cold-heartedness, it's self-preservation. It's knowing that the only opinions that truly matter are those rooted in reason and integrity, yours. When you wear the invisible armor of indifference, their words don't penetrate. Their laughter doesn't sting. You become untouchable because you've chosen not to let their shallow judgments matter. You don't have to defend yourself or explain why you didn't join in. Your silence is your armor, your indifference, your freedom. This kind of bravery isn't about standing up and fighting back. It's about standing still and letting the storm of peer pressure pass through you. And when it does, you'll be the one left standing, stronger and freer than ever before. Fourth, the mirror of choices. Every day you wake up and face the same question. Will I choose who I am, or will I let them choose for me? Stoicism presents this as a daily reflection, a mirror that never lies. As Epictetus warned, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Picture this. You're invited to an event where everyone will be dressed in a way that doesn't align with who you are. The pressure to look the part, to blend in, feels overwhelming. The mirror shows you two versions of yourself, the one that bends and the one that stands tall. Which one will you choose? This is the hidden battle of peer pressure, the slow erosion of your choices. When you act for others, you lose sight of who you are. But Stoicism offers a simple remedy. Look into the mirror of your own values. Every time you choose to conform, you create a version of yourself that's harder to recognize. The longer you let others dictate your actions, the more distant you become from the person you once were. But if you choose yourself, if you look into that mirror and decide to live according to your principles, you find something priceless. Peer pressure may still surround you, but it no longer distorts your reflection. The choices become easier because they aren't really choices anymore. You've already decided who you are. And when you act from that place of inner clarity, no external force can shake you. Fifth, the cost of saying yes. How often do you say yes when your mind screams no? Peer pressure often pushes us into decisions that betray our true desires, making us say yes to things we later regret. Seneca warned, "Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power." Every time you surrender to the expectations of others, you give away a piece of your power. Consider a moment when friends urged you to go somewhere you didn't want to be. You reluctantly agreed, thinking it would be easier to conform than to stand your ground. But as the night dragged on, you felt drained, uncomfortable, out of place. That yes wasn't just a word. It was the slow erosion of your inner peace. Stoicism teaches us that saying no isn't an act of defiance. It's an act of self-preservation. Each time you agree to something that doesn't align with your values, you pay a price. The cost? Your time, energy, and sense of self. But when you say no, you reclaim your autonomy. You stop living for the approval of others and start living for yourself. The next time you feel the pressure to say yes, pause. Ask yourself what you're truly agreeing to. Are you choosing what's right for you? Or are you choosing what's easiest? The world will continue to ask more of you. But when you learn the strength of saying no, you'll find that the real power was always yours. And that simple no might just save you from losing yourself. Sixth, the strength of vulnerability. Peer pressure thrives on the fear of appearing weak or different. But Stoicism reveals a deeper truth. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's strength in disguise. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." What if the very thing you fear, standing out, was actually the path to true power? Imagine a scenario where your group of friends is mocking someone for their insecurities, and the pressure to join in builds. You feel the familiar tug to blend in, to laugh along, to avoid being seen as different. But what if you did the opposite? What if you stepped into that discomfort and exposed your own vulnerabilities instead? Stoicism teaches us that true strength lies in embracing what we fear most. By acknowledging your own vulnerabilities, you take away the power of peer pressure to control you. Suddenly, the fear of judgment vanishes because you've already faced it head-on. You've disarmed the weapon they were holding. When you stand tall in your own truth, even when it's uncomfortable, you gain a different kind of respect. The respect that comes from being real, from being brave enough to show who you really are. Peer pressure loses its grip because it can't manipulate someone who has nothing to hide. In vulnerability, you find not just courage, but freedom. The freedom to be yourself in a world that constantly demands you to be someone else. Seventh, the weight of other people's opinions. We all carry something heavy. For many, that weight is the opinion of others. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Peer pressure, at its core, is the fear of how others will react to our choices. But what if you could drop that weight entirely? Imagine sitting at a dinner table where everyone has an opinion about how you should live, what job you should take, who you should date, how you should behave. Each opinion feels like a stone added to the backpack you're carrying. The weight grows, and you feel your sense of self slipping away, crushed under the expectations of others. But Stoicism gives us permission to put that backpack down. It teaches us that other people's opinions are just that, opinions. They're reflections of their own beliefs, fears, and insecurities, not truths about who you are. The real battle isn't in convincing them to change their views, but in changing how much power you give their words. The moment you realize that their opinions are not your burden to carry, something shifts. You stand a little taller. You breathe a little easier. The world doesn't change, but your relationship to it does. And suddenly, the weight you've been carrying for so long falls away. You're free, not because they stopped judging you, but because you stopped letting their judgments matter. And that is where real strength lies. Eighth, the discipline of self-control. Peer pressure often pushes us to act impulsively, to follow the crowd without thinking. But Stoicism teaches that self-control is the key to freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In a world full of noise, the discipline to control your reactions is a superpower. Picture a moment when your friends are urging you to do something reckless. Maybe it's skipping an important responsibility or making a choice that feels wrong. The pressure mounts, and the impulse to give in bubbles up inside you. You tell yourself, just this once won't matter. But deep down, you know it does. Self-control isn't about resisting the urge in a single moment. It's about building the discipline to stay true to your principles, even when the world tries to pull you away. The challenge lies not in fighting the crowd, but in controlling the chaos inside yourself. When you master this, peer pressure loses its grip on you. The more you practice self-control, the stronger you become. It's not about denying yourself pleasure or fun. It's about choosing what aligns with your values over what feels good in the moment. Each time you exercise control, you reinforce your sense of self. And when peer pressure strikes again, as it always does, you'll find that the storm has less power over you. You stand firm, unshaken, because you know that the greatest power you possess is control over your own mind. Ninth, the quiet power of observation. In the rush to fit in, we often forget the power of observation. Seneca once said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." Peer pressure blinds us to the subtle moments where we can choose a different path. But what if, instead of reacting, you stop to observe? Imagine a time when everyone around you is making a decision that feels wrong to you. Maybe it's gossiping, taking shortcuts, or simply going along with something that doesn't sit well in your gut. The pressure is building for you to follow suit. But instead of jumping in, you pause. You watch. In that quiet space of observation, something happens. You see things more clearly. You notice how others are acting, not out of strength, but out of their own insecurities. You realize that their pressure on you comes from their need to conform, not from a place of power. Stoicism teaches that in observation, we find wisdom. By stepping back and watching rather than reacting, you gain perspective. You see the situation for what it really is, not what your fear wants it to be. And in that moment, you realize that the pressure isn't coming from them. It's coming from inside you. When you observe instead of react, you create space between yourself and the world. That space is where true freedom lives. You no longer feel the need to respond to every push or pull. You've transcended the game they're playing, and in doing so, you've already won. 10th, the ultimate freedom. Choosing your own path, peer pressure is the illusion that you have no choice. But Stoicism reminds us that the ultimate freedom lies in choosing your own path. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." What if, instead of letting others dictate your choices, you painted your own world? Think back to a time when you followed the crowd, even though it didn't feel right. Maybe it was choosing a career path that wasn't yours, entering a relationship that wasn't for you, or saying yes to a life that never felt like your own. The weight of those choices still lingers, doesn't it? You walked a road that wasn't yours, hoping to find happiness in someone else's direction. But Stoicism offers a different way, a path where your choices come from within. The road less traveled is often the one that feels lonely at first, but it's the only one that leads to true freedom. You don't have to take the easy road. You don't have to say yes when your soul says no. The moment you realize that you have the power to choose, despite the pressure, despite the fear, you become free. Peer pressure becomes background noise, a distant echo that no longer influences your decisions. You've chosen yourself, and in that choice, you find a freedom that no one can take from you. The world may not understand your path, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that you walk it boldly, knowing that the only approval you need is your own. Standing at the edge of the cliff, you realize that true power doesn't come from conforming to the expectations of others. It arises from within. Every moment of peer pressure that once threatened to drown you becomes an opportunity to reclaim your voice. When you choose authenticity over acceptance, you forge an unbreakable bond with yourself. The world will continue to throw challenges your way, but you now possess the strength to navigate them with confidence and clarity. If you're ready to unlock even more strategies for personal growth and resilience, stick around. Your journey is just beginning. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out our other videos for more insights that can change your life.